to the Vintage Vibe. And what's on the agenda? Why, we're going to take a look at Denon's massive DP-59L Turntable. So stick around because there's a lot more to see right here on the Vintage Vibe. Welcome and come gather around by the fire on the Vintage Vibe for story time. Not quite. I am though reading a book here, which I don't do very often, and this was a 100th anniversary book, kind of on some of the milestones of the manufacturer that they released in about 2010 with their PMA A100 integrated amp, the 100th anniversary amp, as well as their DP A100 or whatever it was called, which is their 100th anniversary turntable. Now, I've got both of those pieces, and they are phenomenal pieces. But see, when you say the word Denon, or as some people call it Denon, we're going to call it Denon because Denon sounds like yogurt. People think of black plastic home theater receivers, which, by the way, they made a lot of. And one of the reasons why, here's an interesting fact, in '95, they created the world's first home theater system to support Dolby Digital decoding with Lucasfilm THX 5.1. I mean, 5.1 Dolby Digital, THX, this is huge. This is something that, geez, I remember when that came out, I had one of those in my house. So no wonder people think of black plastic equipment when they think of Denon. They don't usually think of things like this here. The PMA 1500R, which was a fantastic MOSFET-based amplifier, or the bigger brother, the 2000, which is quite desirable today. They certainly don't think of pieces often like this. This is a PMA 850 Mark II, which, by the way, has a on-the-fly switch to engage Class A, just like the early Yamahas, like the CA1000, or the 1010, or the bigger brother, the 2010, which were, again, all fantastic amplifiers. We'll do a review on that one there, the HCA 850, on a later episode. People usually think also, I think, with Denon about turntables, hence why we're going to talk about the DP-59L, which I think should be in the book for firsts as the world's first turntable to cause hernia, because it weighs a ton. But they do think of pieces like the DP-1200, which again is a great turntable. So come with me on a little journey to take a look at a unique manufacturer and a fantastic turntable, which, by the way, I'll let kind of the mystery out of the bag here, or the cat out of the bag, however you want to put it. If you can find one, yes, it deserves a place in your vintage audio collection. Now you can fast forward to the end. Be right back. Well, here it is, the DP-59L, a fully automatic masterpiece manufactured by Denon. Well, maybe not fully automatic. Now check out this beautiful 5-inch thick real wood plinth that, yes, does have a rosewood plasticky veneer, but it's ultra gloss and that makes it cool. And a 2.2 kilogram platter with electronic braking, a digital LCD display, plus or minus 9% for pitch control, electronic kind of cueing, as well as this beautiful dynamic servo tracer arm. And talking about that tone arm, we're going to manually bring it across because it is manual in that respect. And we're going to press the cueing here, which will ever so slowly lower that arm into place. And again, pressing it to bring it back up. Now it will shut off when it hits the end of the record and lift, which is kind of cool. And let's just take a peek at the electronic braking. Now, this was a best-selling turntable for Denon, and it really was a welcomed change to the style that they were making throughout the 70s, which we'll call the flying saucer turntables, like the DP-1200 that we mentioned a little bit earlier. I mean, let's face it, Frisbee-like turntables were now becoming a thing of the past, and people wanted something different. And Denon thought going with an oversized turntable that would give you a hernia was right up the alley, because Yamaha created their own GT series turntables, standing for gigantic and tremendous, like the GT 750. This turntable weighs more than most integrated amplifiers. It is really based around what we call a low center of gravity AC servo quartz PPL motor. Now, that's a mouthful, which it is. Just think of it this way. It's a motor that can keep a steady speed through Denon's, they call it a magnetic imprint. It literally has a head that reads, and it has over 1,000 magnetic points in it, and it controls speed. Now, this table has tremendous torque. It starts just as fast as it stops. And if you have a record brush and you're cleaning your record and you put that drag on the record, which if you have a belt drive turntable, you'll notice slows down the motor, the Denon just chugs along right through. Now, it also has what I'll call a unique bidirectional servo, sorry. But it's not that unique because Denon didn't create it. In fact, this would have been something pioneered by the Victor company in about 1976, and you would have seen it in their top-selling turntable, the TT-101 series. The tone arm, which I'll show you in a second, is something to really admire. Let's do a close-up of that turntable's tone arm, and we'll talk a little bit about what's just going on there. So this tone arm uses what they call a dynamic servo tracer. Really, it's electronica for trying to keep the tone arm into a groove. So the Q dampening is a resonance control in case of earthquakes. And this quartz drive table has a special dampened head shell, aluminum tone arm that can be switched on the fly to an S tone arm, and a series of weights for the back for your favorite cartridge, of course, which we're using an Audio-Technica 120 in this case. And you know what? All of this tremendous mass leads to a wow and flutter rating of 0.006%. And believe it or not, this was all a mid-high-end package that could cost about 89,000 yen or $1,000 in the 80s. Not too shabby. And here we go adjusting the pitch up in increments, in this case of 0.1%, all the way up plus or minus 9%. You can see a speed control for 33 and 45. And here's a close-up of that AT120E cartridge, which was a great fit for this table. And unlike so many tables, Denon provided a good quality dust cover. Now we're going to turn this on one last time, play some tunes while we give our final review, and just check out that immediate startup, that massive torque. Just get ready to cue this up here. And, oh, wait a second. Put that back down. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about it. The convenience of remote. Some final opinions on the Big Denon. And I think you know by now I'm pretty impressed with it. Now, I've had, for reference, well over 100 turntables in the past 20 years, and I think you probably can believe that based on these videos. This is a great table, and many of us suffer from a common thing called footfall, which means someone runs into the room and the record skips because the needle comes out of the groove. With the Denon, you can have a polka party in your living room and the record will not skip. Now, in this day and age, we can spend hundreds of dollars on isolation techniques for turntables, including special feet for the turntables or platforms to reduce vibrations, to prevent skipping, to reduce microphonics. Because remember, again, the turntable is essentially a microphone reading tiny little grooves in a piece of vinyl, eloquently put. The Denon just I mean, none of that is necessary with this turntable. It is such a sure-footed turntable with such mass that it just is extremely well engineered. And it plays clean and relatively loud. It has a pretty modest gain. The signal to noise ratio is in the mid 80s. The background is dark with this turntable. You don't hear a lot of surface noise. You don't hear clicks and pops, which to some degree is a result of how clean your vinyl is. But this turntable just, it plays better than most. And I find with the Audio-Technica cartridge, it just is a great combination. All my records sound great and I love it. And that's one of the reasons I reacquired the 100th anniversary turntable, which I think is homage to the 80s big plinth Denon tables. You will pay today in Canadian dollars probably $1,200 to $1,500 to find one of these. And be sure that you find one that is complete with the weight sets. There are 3 weights that come with this turntable for the tone arm, and the table did come originally with the option for 2 different tone arms, the straight one and the S-shaped tone arm. So try to get a complete table if you can. The only thing I had with the turntable was I had to change my RCA cables. They eventually became noisy. The connection was disturbed inside the plinth. It was an easy kind of change out. I went ahead and I did that. And I could see in the future perhaps some of the electronics getting glitchy because, again, we're talking about LCD screens for the pitch control and probably a whole bunch of capacitors in that turntable. But until that time period, get one, enjoy it, love it, and service it eventually when you need to. So I hope you enjoyed this episode on the Vintage Vibe. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time when I think we're going to dive into some DIY speakers as requested by one of our subscribers. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.